Ever sipped something so dangerous they banned it across half the world? A drink blamed for madness, murder, and maybe even Van Gogh's ear. This isn't just booze. It's absinthe, the green fairy that haunted Europe. A potion loved by poets, feared by doctors, and outlawed by governments. Pour a glass. Or maybe don't, and let's unravel the dark, intoxicating legend of absinthe. I am the green fairy, the green muse, the green oblivion. No, these aren't just Kermit the Frog's side hustles as a street magician. They're nicknames for one of the most exotic canned misunderstood spirits in history. Absinthe once banned across the United States and feared throughout Europe for its supposed links to addiction, hallucinations, and outright madness. Absinthe is staging a strange little comeback. A little older, a little wiser, but still dangerously green. Today, we're diving into the wild, weird, and artistic history of every tortured poet's favorite drink, absinthe. But before we pour a glass, let's go back to where it all started. Literally at the root. Absinthe is made from the leaves and flowers of a plant called Artemisia absinthium, better known as grand wormwood. It's then infused with green anise, sweet fennel, and a mix of other herbs, both culinary and medicinal. But no, this isn't a secret recipe from the Colonel. No 11 herbs and spices here. Absinthe is strong, like dangerously strong, with alcohol levels ranging from 45 to 75%. This isn't just a drink, it's a summoning ritual for a very weird night. Because it's so potent, people usually dilute it with water before sipping. But where did this mysterious green elixir come from? The first known absinthe spirits likely emerged in Switzerland, late in the 18th century. But wormwood, the key ingredient, goes way back, like ancient Egypt back. Over 3,500 years ago, Egyptian papyrus scrolls described wormwood as a treatment for intestinal parasites. And in ancient Greece, women chewed it to help ease the pain of childbirth. The name absinthe itself. It likely comes from the Greek word, which means undrinkable. Undrinkable, says who? Try telling that to an artist in Paris with nothing to lose. So why would something be called undrinkable? And then end up as one of the most iconic drinks in European history? Well, the name probably didn't mean it tasted awful. Though it might have, it was more about its use in medicine. Wormwood was strong stuff. It could purge your system, wean babies off breastfeeding, and possibly make you see things that weren't there. Which, depending on your weekend plans, might not be a downside. Absinthe and the arts. Absinthe's real claim to fame came centuries later. In the and art studios of 19th century France, it wasn't just a drink. It was an aesthetic, a ritual, a whole vibe. Absinthe became closely linked with painters, poets, and artists, especially the French Impressionists. We're talking about names like Edouard Manet and Edgar Degas. Not only did they drink the stuff, they painted it. Degas' painting L'Absinthe shows a lonely, disheveled woman staring blankly at a glass of the green stuff. Critics of the time were horrified. They called it immoral, uncouth, even degraded. Like someone painted a woman day-drinking for loco in a public cafe. Manet's painting, The Absinthe Drinker, didn't fare much better. It showed a Parisian ragman who looked like he'd just lost a fight with a broom closet. When Manet submitted it to the French Salon in 1859, it was almost unanimously rejected. Even his own teacher, Thomas Couture, supposedly asked if he'd lost his moral compass. No, Thomas, he'd just found absinthe. Vincent van Gogh and the Green Muse, one of absinthe's most infamous fans. Vincent van Gogh. And yes, it gets dark. A 2004 paper by a medical researcher claimed absinthe, and specifically a chemical inside it called thujone, may have contributed to Van Gogh's depression and psychological breakdowns. Some theories even suggest that Van Gogh's bizarre behavior, including eating paint, was actually an attempt to feed his addiction to thujone. Sounds crazy. Well, not everyone agrees. Dutch art historian Jan Hulsker flat out rejected the idea. He said Van Gogh kept absinthe around as decoration. He may have drunk it occasionally. But the paint, that was just a bad habit. Absinthe, dark reputation, or overblown myth. Part of what makes absinthe so fascinating, even today, is its dangerous reputation. People think of it as some kind of magical, forbidden, trippy liquid. Bohemians going mad. Artists having visions. Raves with monocles. That reputation. It came from a real place. Thanks in large part to a French psychiatrist named Valentine Magnin. In the late 1800s, Magnin worked at Sainte-Anne, one of France's biggest mental hospitals. Over the course of 32 years, he studied all kinds of addiction. But he really had it out for absinthe. He blamed it for everything: a rise in alcohol abuse, decline in French culture, even an increase in mental illness and epilepsy. He believed absinthe was turning the population into a nation of violent lunatics, and he had proof. Magnin ran an experiment where he gave alcohol to one group of animals and wormwood oil to another. The animals exposed to wormwood had seizures more often, so he concluded absinthe causes seizures. Science. Sort of, but the public ate it up. Soon the term absinthism was born. A brand new disease. Not alcoholism, something worse. Symptoms included restlessness, confusion, hallucinations, delirium, seizures, and violent behavior. Basically, drunk, but on nightmare mode. Magnin wasn't alone. In America, the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal, the early version of the New England Journal of Medicine, started publishing articles on absinthism too. One of Magnin's students even noticed that some patients had reddish urine and concluded it was caused by a chemical buildup from absinthe. Or maybe they just got punched in the kidneys during a bar fight. Hard to say. The absinthe murders things reached a boiling point in 1905 in a small Swiss town called Comugny. A peasant named Jean Lanfray got drunk on absinthe, wine, and at least 3 other liquors. Then he killed his pregnant wife, his 2 daughters, and tried to shoot himself. He missed. When the police arrived, he was still alive, still conscious, and very, very drunk. Lanfray was convicted, but died by suicide in prison just 3 days later. The press went wild. They called it the Absinthe Murders. Public opinion flipped almost overnight. By 1910, Switzerland had banned absinthe entirely. France followed just 5 years later. By the time France banned absinthe in 1915, the country was drowning in the stuff. They were drinking around 36 million liters a year. That's 95 million gallons. Or, to put it another way, enough to fill 150 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That's not just a trend. That's a lifestyle. And as the anti-absinthe movement gained steam, people blamed it for everything wrong in French society. Declining birth rates, an outbreak of tuberculosis, a rise in violent crime, more suicides. Absinthe became the perfect scapegoat. Then came World War I, when young French men started failing their military medical exams. People asked, why? Doctors pointed to absinthe. Too much drinking, too much madness, too few healthy recruits. So, the government finally said, enough, and banned it. What about the United States? Well, that's a little murkier. Absinthe itself wasn't technically banned by name. Instead, the U.S. outlawed products that contain thujone, the chemical found in wormwood. The same chemical blamed for Van Gogh's madness. Any drink with more than 10 parts per million of thujone was off limits. Some studies had claimed absinthe had up to 250 parts per million. Yikes. But, in the 2000s, an amateur chemist named Ted Bro ran modern tests on vintage bottles of absinthe. Turns out, the old stuff only had about 5 parts per million of thujone, meaning absinthe was probably never actually illegal in the first place, just misunderstood. Classic absinthe. Still, the ban sparked a wave of desperate experimentation. Some absinthe lovers tried to recreate the effects using alternatives. And let's just say, that didn't always go well. Some folks in the 1940s and 50s got a little creative. Legend has it, they mixed gin with the pesticide known as dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane, or DDT for short. They called the drink a Mickey Slim. Supposedly, it gave you that same absinthe-style buzz, but it also gave you the sensation of drinking pesticide, which, it turns out, is not recommended. At the time, people didn't realize how dangerous DDT really was. Back then, it was treated like no big deal, kind of like smoking in hospitals. So yeah, some brave souls may have sipped a Mickey Slim, just for that authentic green fairy experience. But there's little solid evidence that many people actually drank it, which is good, because if they had, they probably wouldn't be around to tell the tale. Now, here's a fun little American legend. Some say absinthe played a role in the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812, according to the story. Andrew Jackson met with the French pirate Jean Lafette to strike a deal. Lafette would lend his fleet to help fight the British, in exchange for a full pardon. And what did they drink during this secret meeting? That's right, absinthe. The old Absinthe house in New Orleans claims it happened right there, under their roof. But in 1951, a rival Bar Maspero's exchange said, no. That happened here. They even filed a lawsuit for the right to claim the story. The judge dismissed the case, saying, legend means nothing more than hearsay or story handed down from the past. Translation: make your own plaque and stop fighting. Like many drug-related tales in American history, the truth is a little hazy, a little twisted, and probably a lot exaggerated. But one thing's for sure, absinthe earned its reputation. The drink that made people hallucinate, that inspired artists, that terrified doctors, that got blamed for murder, madness, and moral decay. And yet, it's still here, still green, still mysterious, still whispered about in dim bars and smoky corners. Absinthe, the drink of artists and edgelords. Everywhere. Would you try it? So, what do you think? Would you dare to dance with the green fairy? Or is this one spirit best left in the past? Let us know in the comments. And if you're thirsty for more wild stories like this, from the dark corners of food, drink, and history, stick around, because this wasn't just alcohol. This was absinthe. And now you know its secrets.